Okay, so here we have a simple widget list editor, right, that shows me the current list of widgets, and this is the state of these widgets are being maintained on the server. So I'm not doing anything, right? It's on the server, and the reducer, the only thing that it's doing is that it's propagating the state that it's getting from the server over to the container and then the component. We have noticed that if I refresh the page, right, it has the same list, so it survives a refresh. Because the state is being maintained on the server, so it's permanently stored there. Well, at least until the server crashes and it boots up, then we only get the first 4. Okay. So let's extend this a little bit and say perhaps we want to delete a widget that's already there. So let's play around with that. I say that when we render them in the component, we might have perhaps a button, right, a delete button at the end, that we can perhaps click and then remove them. So say we have a button here that says delete this widget, and what we would like to be able to do is notify, right? Again, we don't maintain our own state. We don't do anything here, right? We just notify the container. The container is the one who's responsible for doing all this, right? Managing all my state. So let's do that. So on click. We're going to notify a delete widget. Now notice that the create widget, we didn't pass any arguments. See that? This when we clicked on the create, we never passed any arguments. Right? But here we might want to pass an argument saying which one are you deleting? Right? Perhaps delete the one who has this particular ID. Yes? Right? So one way to do that is that you'd be tempted to do the following, right? To put parentheses here and say widget.id, all right? That would probably just remove all the widgets, right? Because what happens is that function, you're actually calling it. You're calling it right away. It's an immediate invocation, right? And you're passing this data. Presumably it's going to go out to the server. The server actually removes the widget, and all the widgets are going to be removed. Instead, we want to delegate, right? We want to postpone the invocation of this function to a later time, right? When the button actually gets clicked. Okay? All right. So to do that, we're going to put it inside of a lambda, right? So that this won't be invoked yet, only when it actually gets clicked. Okay? All right. So careful there, right? Here, because we're not passing any arguments, we're just passing a reference to something that already exists. Here, the reference is the method. That's the reference. And then at some point, it's going to be invoked, which actually calls this here. All right? Oops. There it is. All right. So who has this? Well, again, it's through the properties. We're going to tie it to the container. All right, notice that now we're enter kind of a cadence, right? The component declares what events it wants to generate, what data it needs, and then it goes to the container. And the container interacts with the reducer. Yes? Right, so notice the pattern. Right? Hopefully after doing this a few times, you'll become second nature to you, and then it'll all sink in. So delete is here, delete widget. It's going to be mapped in the property to dispatch mapper. Right? So we're going to create a new map here. It's going to be mapped to some function. There it is. Okay. Now this function, unlike all the other ones, this function actually provides an argument. Right? It's passing the ID of the widget, right? Which is right here. This is the function that's being called. So here is the widget ID. Yes? Right? Okay, and where are we handling that? Just like all the other one, right? They're all going through the service. The server is going to do a delete onto the server. The server is going to update the state on the server, and it's going to come back with a new state. Yes? All right, so let's do that. All right, so this is going to do what? It's going to do a widget service dot delete widget. It's going to pass the widget ID argument that it passed there. Presumably, it's going to come back with the with the new list of widgets, right, which we are going to notify the dispatcher, blah, 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 like all the other ones, right? So we're just going to copy this. Oops. Paste. Right? And instead of create widgets, this will be delete widget with the new widgets that came back from the server. Hopefully won't have that widget that we are removing. Okay? All right, so if we go back to the actual implementation, the delete widget in the widget service, before it was using this synchronous implementation of the local array. Right? We don't have that anymore. We have to go out to the server. Yes? Right, so let's do that. I'm going to copy this create widget here. It's going to look very similar. Right? And I'm going to implement delete widget here. I'm going to remove my curly brackets so that I get an implicit return. There we go. Oops. There we go. So the only difference here is that the method is not post, right? It's a delete. Also, we're not sending anything in the body. Right? We're not sending any data in the body. So there's no need to configure the headers for the MIME type, right? Okay. Also, this widget ID needs to be part of the URL. You know, based on the server, the delete, right, takes the ID as the very last element in the URL, right? So we need to add it at the end of the URL. Yes.
Since the servers are returning a void, it wouldn't be returning the list of widgets, though.
Yeah, we'll fix that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also an additional S.
I'm putting S's everywhere. So there's a delete. We need to put this widget ID at the end of this. We could just concatenate it, right, plus a widget ID, or we can use the more modern backticks, okay, and then use we can embed the widget ID right here. This is a little less error prone, right, than doing concatenations. Also allows you to break up long lists, long strings into multiple lines. All right, I think that's it for the delete widget. That's on the client side. As our colleague here suggested, we need to go back to the server and change this a little bit. We never actually implemented it. Okay. We have the widget ID, and we need to remove things, right? So how do we remove that? Well, we could filter out. We can use the same technique that we use in JavaScript. You know, we could use same anonymous functions and filters and whatnot. I don't quite remember, so if somebody can walk me through this, it'll be widget ID, widgets. I'm going to update the widgets. It's going to be, is it widgets dot stream? Is it stream? I think there's a filter. And then this is each one of the widgets. And I only want to keep the widget if the widget dot get ID, if it's different, if it's not equals the widget ID that I have here. If it's not equal, I want it. Uh-oh, I'm missing something.
It's widget ID, not widget.
I'm sorry?
If the variable name is widget ID.
No, it's WID. And I think I need to collect somehow. This is the last part that I don't remember. Collector. Oh, there it is. All right, and then we should be able to just return the widgets, and we need to change this to be a list of widgets. All right, let's see if that works. Okay. Let's restart the server. All right, let's go back and let's refresh. Oops. Uh-oh. Did something die? What did I do? Console access, fetch, yada, 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 3000 has been blocked by course. What? Yeah, but we've been using... All right, so that gives me a chance to talk about course. So notice that what's happening here is that React here is running on localhost 3000, yes? But our server is running on localhost 8080, right? So in normal circumstances, this would be considered by the browser a breach of security, right? That a JavaScript is being downloaded from one domain, but it's trying to communicate to another domain, right? And that's considered to be a cross-domain scripting, right? JavaScript that is downloaded from one domain for security purposes, the browser remembers where that code was downloaded from, and for security purposes, all that JavaScript is only allowed to talk to the original domain that it came from. Okay, it's not allowed to talk to anybody else. Okay, now if you want to allow the one JavaScript to talk to some other place, right? You need to be able to configure the server. What the browser does is that it downloads the JavaScript from 3000, for instance, and then it's trying to communicate with somebody in 8080. What the browser is going to do is going to go out to the server first and say, "Hey, server, this JavaScript that was downloaded from 3000 wants to talk to you. Is it okay? Will you accept the communication?" Right? And if the server says yes, then the browser allows the connection. Right? If the server says no, then you get this exception, which I was expecting it to get it earlier. I'm not sure why I wasn't getting it earlier. So there are a couple of techniques to circumvent this. As somebody suggested, a browser plugin, but that would only work for the browsers that have the plugin installed, right? The other two solutions are to use what is called JSON-P, and the other one is to use a course, right? So JSON-P is a kind of a hack that the industry kind of accepted. That was that everybody was an accepted hack, right? Which I'm not going to get into just yet. The other one is the correct way of doing it. Right? The correct way of doing it is to configure the server to say yes, you will accept the connection. Right? Servers can be configured to accept communication from other folks. So let's do that. So to do that, we're going to go to the REST controller, and we're going to annotate cross-origin. There it is, cross-origin. And cross-origin says, where are you accepting communications from? And here you can list all the domains that you want to allow to communicate with you. All right? Or you can be very, very trustworthy and say, I will accept from anybody. All right? I'll accept communication from anybody. I don't care who talks to me, I'll say yes. All right? So this says I will accept communication from any domain, or you can list them in a comma-separated string. You can list the domains that you want. Here we're being very, very trusting. All right, so I'm going to restart the server. Yes. Yeah, right, that start with a particular URL pattern. Yeah, you can provide URL patterns. Yep. All right, so let's try this again. Let's retrieve this. Okay, we're back in business. Now the interesting thing here is notice the communication. Widgets. Where is it? Okay, so let's do a delete. See if that works. All right, so let's do a delete here. I'm going to clear this. I'm going to do a delete. Okay. All right, so we'll fix that in a minute. But notice that two queries went out. Two queries went out. See that? All right, the first query is the browser asking the server for permission. It's saying, is it okay do you accept deletes? Right, and the server responding, yes, I accept deletes. And then the second one is the actual delete. See that? All right. The first query is often referred to as a pre-flight query, right? Meaning before I actually do this command, I'm going to ask for permission. It's asking for options. It's saying, hey server, what are my options? Right? And the server responds, it allows get, head, post, put, delete, everything. Right? It accepts everything. You can send me all those commands. All right? And then the client, and then the browser says, oh, okay, delete is allowed. There it goes. I'm gonna allow the delete to go through. I'm gonna allow the delete to go through, and I get a 200. So presumably it has actually worked. Presumably it was actually removed. Let's refresh the page. Indeed, notice that widget 1 is no longer there. See that? Widget 1 is no longer there. So as far as the server is concerned, the widget was removed. Right? Something happened here on the client. Let's try and fix that. Let's see. When we do the delete, right? So it's probably something with the state. We probably never did update we never told we probably never told the reducer what to do with this delete widget. We probably never did that. So let's go into the reducer, and yes, indeed, notice that delete widget wasn't doing anything, right? So let's grab that. Right, and just move it over here. So in both cases, or 3 cases, in create, find, and delete, we're just going to take the widgets that come from the server and we're going to update the list of widgets. Yes? All right. So let's try it again. Let's refresh. Refresh. Now I'm going to click on widget 3, and indeed, notice that it deletes it and then just re-updates. Yes? Everything okay? All right. Awesome.